All right, welcome to the Sunday draft. This Sunday we have a couple of segments, Santi. We've got the Meenu Batra case. We really want to discuss that. And then also just talk about some of the events lately that have happened in the world of journalism. So we'll talk about that. That's how we'll wrap up the episode. So let's get straight into the Meenu Batra case. I don't know. Did you even hear about the Meenu Batra case, Santi?
Yes, I did. I did read about it in Times of India, I think. So it has been reported in Indian newspapers, especially the bigger ones,
Hmm.
and especially because it relates to an Indian origin woman who has obviously lived in the US for so long. So immigration issues, given the recent trend with Indians living in the US, has been a topic of interest in India, of course. So
Yeah.
it got some coverage here, yes.
Yeah, I happened to just catch it in my feed, and that is my whole issue with this issue is that it doesn't get enough coverage, at least
Mm.
nationally. I have seen a lot of coverage for ICE detentions in the past, especially when you have people detained, pulled off the streets. We saw a lot of protests late last year, like in the US.
Right.
We saw the shootings that happened in Minneapolis. Right, there was a person named Renee Good who was shot while she was trying to just get away from this ICE blockade or something. It was just a weird situation, and then that happened. There was a hue and cry about that, a lot of protests, and then the bigger one that happened was this ICU nurse Alex Pretty that I remember. I think it was October, November time that happened, and there has been many other cases. We see reels in this day of AI. Uh, People easily dismiss these things, say, that's fake.
Mm.
But not all of them are because they've been reported widely. And that's where I want to touch upon this journalism aspect towards the end of this, just how journalism is evolving. But it was such
So
a hue and cry. Yeah.
do you have any idea or theory of why there is not enough coverage in the US media about these cases?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of distraction now with the war, right? So right now, I think it's the Iran war that's pretty much dominating the feeds, whether it's podcast media, YouTubers, independent media, what they call it, independent journalism,
Mm.
and then mainstream media. The coverage is so less because everything is, I think, overshadowed by the Iran war, which is never ending, the chaotic war that we are in right now, which, you could argue a war we should not have been in. So again, the larger issues like the ICE detentions that were happening just at the end of Feb, it just switched. The narrative switched online. Everything is about the war. Obviously, I mean,
That's
it
one
is
thing, but
important to cover the war.
is
Yeah.
there also a feeling that this is becoming kind of the norm? So there is no sense of anything new happening. I mean, this seems to be cases after cases,
I know. Yeah, I
detention by
mean,
ICE of different people of different nationalities on different grounds.
maybe.
So is it
Yeah.
becoming normal now?
It should not be, right? Again, who
It should
knows
not
what's in
be, right?
people's heads, but yes, we are numbed by it. So maybe I wouldn't say use the word normal. There's a numbness to what's happening in terms of all these issues. We are numb to the war discussion, right? Again and again. Every
Mm.
story seems to take this path of, no end in sight, right? Never ending issues, not just the war, the ICE detentions. There are other, issues I've been following. No end in sight, no resolution. And after a while, everybody kind of gets numbed by it. So
Mm.
I don't think it's normalization. It's this intentionally being numbed by it, right? So again, the ICE detentions were really popular in the news, like for the news media, and then it just died out because the war took over, right? And then uh, the continuing broadcasts have all been about the war. I happened to catch this last week where CBS aired this episode about Meenu Batra,
Okay.
and that's how I came to know about it. Again, it came and then went. I don't think it was a very small segment, 2 minute. It pissed me off because it needs more coverage than that. So Meenu Batra's case is really about this 53-year-old woman who was detained by ICE as she was on her way to work. Landed in Milwaukee airport like she
Mm.
usually does. She works at the court as a court interpreter, and she was basically pulled out of the after the security check. She was basically approached by these plainclothes guys, these ICE agents,
Mm.
and said, "You have a deportation order in your name. Do you know that? And then come with us." Pretty much that was it. That was almost 40 plus days ago. So it happened on March 17th, right? In the middle of
Right.
all this
It's
war
more
and
than a
whatever
month
was
now.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to more than a month, 40 plus days right now. And the CBS interview was at her home where they talked to four of her kids who are all U.S. citizens. The youngest one actually is enlisting in the U.S. Army, has enlisted in the US Army. And it's very sad to hear that story. And then they actually call her in the detention center where she's just saying, I just don't know why this is happening to me. I've been an honest citizen, I've been working, I've been legal, I've not done anything wrong. I've been legally working in the United States for 20 plus years. And then why is this happening to me is the question, right? 53-year-old in a detention center. Just imagine your mom or somebody
Mm.
who's that old who is in a detention center amongst other criminals, which is kind of
Without
what.
having any criminal record
Yeah, she has
whatsoever.
one driving ticket, like
Okay.
speeding ticket,
Mm.
which is the only thing that she has on her record 30 years ago or something. So she's been in the United States for 35 plus years. Now she has
Mm.
a deportation order, and that's what I want to talk to you about. Uh, is it's
But that has
so
that has been withheld. So my question was, what does withholding of removal
yeah.
status mean legally?
Yeah. So that's what as I was diving deeper into this, right? So she does have a deportation order from the year 2000. A court judge basically said, hey, you are given this deportation order. Here's a notice of deportation. Along with it, she was given this other status, which kind of says that your deportation order is on stay,
Okay.
right? Because you have this withholding of removal. You are withheld. Your removal is being withheld, right? You cannot be
Okay.
deported.
Mm.
Especially now, the withholding of removal is a status given to a lot of people who are basically coming into the US seeking asylum. They do not get asylum. Asylum is very hard to get, right? Only 10% I read get the asylum granted.
And if
So
I am correct, I understand that she didn't apply for asylum as such.
it doesn't seem like it.
She's
Yeah,
mm.
she came in, in I think 1991 as a um, teenager. She was only, and then she might have missed that period because you got to apply for asylum within a year, but she
Mm.
missed that probably. Who knows back then what happened? And then she probably that's why she didn't get the asylum process. She couldn't initiate it. Instead, so what happens is you can go for this option, saying that you can prove that your country that you fled from, which in this case Meenu fled from India
Mm.
in the late 90s or early 90s, sorry,
91.
91, because the anti-Sikh violence had erupted in India back then, and a lot of Sikhs were getting killed.
Mm.
Her parents got killed, right? So she basically said, probably, she proved that that was happening. So you can't be deported. So she had a valid case to enough to prove, and 50% of
Although
people who apply for
although
withholding of
the
removal will actually get
timeline
it.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, the timeline I was looking at, the timeline of her case. The anti-Sikh riots happened in 1984,
Hmm.
and she fled to the US in 1991, 7 years later. I can imagine that there were a lot of cases, inquiries going on, and a lot of people were kind of basically interviewed witnesses, but at the same time, the other party who were the accused, they were also politically
Hmm.
influential people, so they were threatening the witnesses. So there might be something that felt her threatened enough to leave the country, and she went to the US in 1991, but she was given the withdrawal of removal order in 2000. So it's not clear exactly what happened in
Yeah.
those 9 years.
Hmm.
And it seems like she didn't apply for asylum, but at some stage
Yeah.
obviously her status was subject to kind of court
Yeah.
discretion.
Yeah.
So do you know why she didn't seek asylum? Or I mean, you said that probably she didn't
We don't know.
realize that
We don't know
she had
why
to
she
withdraw.
didn't. Again, we can only speculate at this point that she couldn't seek
Mm,
asylum. There's also, in the latest interview, I think there was an interview by her lawyer with her lawyer on CNN just 4 days ago, where they talk
yeah,
about
Deepak Aluwalia, I saw that.
Aluwalia. Yeah, so he's the one leading this case on Meenu's behalf. Uh, in that, they mentioned that she got into the US illegally, right? Again, it is not proven, but then they're claiming the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, has claimed that she has got into the country illegally back then in 1991, which is basically she might have come through a Mexico border or something like that, right? Again, you don't know
Okay.
how people got in back then when the Sikh violence was anti-Sikh violence was happening. A lot of people fled from India to UK,
Mm,
Canada, and US. And
US.
how they got it might be the donkey route,
Mm.
they might have actually got in somehow. Again, we don't know, and most likely that's the case. When
But
her
whatever
parents was
the
killed, yeah,
yeah, whatever the route might be,
mm-hmm.
once she has received withholding of removal order, isn't it legally binding until it is reversed and appeal
Yeah,
or something?
exactly,
Has
right.
there
So
been
she
any appeal against that order that triggered the
you
action?
you you can't, right? There is no appeal from that point. So now, so she came in probably through the Mexico border recording. If you have to believe what they're saying, again, there's no proof to that, right? How
Hmm.
do you prove something that happened 26 plus years ago? um, so she got in, and then that's probably why, to your earlier question, she could not seek asylum, because she came through that route. So then you don't even have the option. I think, I'm not sure. There are people who are getting through the border and then they're still able to seek asylum. So again, she might have just missed the timeline. You got to do it
Hmm.
within the first year. But to your second question, yeah, the withholding of removal cannot be revoked, right? So it doesn't allow you to be a U.S. citizen. So that's the difference between asylum and this withholding of removal, is that you cannot get a green card, you cannot get this thing. You are kind of in that status until the situation back in your home country changes,
Okay.
right? So that is the DHS will have to kind of certify that to actually approach her, which they have not done in the past 26 plus years, right? They have not done anything due process where they would go and tell this, hey, your situation changed. India is better now. Go back. Then they
Okay.
can revoke it, but
Hmm.
she cannot do anything, right? She has to live in that state without being, but she has authorization documents that she can work, and she's been working as I said earlier, court appointed interpreter, and she's the only one in the state of Texas. It's called the Lone Star State. Only one who is pretty much allowed, who's skilled in Hindi, Punjabi, and Urdu, and she's been working in the
Hmm.
courts, right, as an interpreter, probably helping a lot of other immigrants,
Hmm.
and still this happens to her. And again, as I said,
Yeah,
all her kids are US
that's
citizens.
a bit sad part of the story is that she's
Yeah.
somebody who is helping the judicial process,
Yeah.
uh, ensuring that justice is
Yeah.
given to people who are not able to, let's say, kind of fight their case in English. So she is
Yeah.
interpreting them from their language to English and helping the judicial system. Now she is caught up in herself in that
Yeah.
system, but something that doesn't look like was her kind of mistake or anything. I mean, she hasn't done
No, she's
anything.
not done anything wrong, right? She is
Yeah.
working within the boundaries of what the government of the United States courts and the laws and the government has allowed her to do, which is, you got this, you can work. And for 30 plus years that, let's just say 20 plus years that she's been working, nobody's come back to her saying that, you're wrong. Now,
Hmm.
why is it happening now? Because the Trump 2.0 government is actually using that loophole, which is the withholding of removal only says you cannot be deported to India in this case. right? Or your home country where you're facing persecution or torture or whatever it is, right? A lot of other cases have happened. More notably, there's a guy named Kilmar, Abrigo Kilmar, who was actually um, detained because he had withholding of removal status. They pulled him away and then into detention, and then he was able to get out um, because there's they were able to overturn that because the court basically said this is not legal. You cannot use that loophole because it is not warranted, right? You have to go through
So,
due process.
okay, so there is a precedent that could be used by
Yes.
Meenu to basically argue that
Yeah.
this should not be legal as well.
Yeah, and it looks like they're not using that precedence, but basically, I think the lawyer Deepak Ahluwalia is pretty much saying, um, you got to go through due process. So he's betting
Mm.
on the fact that this was done illegally. You got to release her, go through the due process. Prove DHS has to prove that the country that she came from is now okay to be sent back to. That is a due
Mm.
process. They have to do their due process without just pulling people. Don't do it after the fact. So that is his argument. Because
Mm.
the biggest thing for Meenu right now is we should, you know, um, ensure that she doesn't get deported to a third country, and that's what happened to Kilmar. He got deported to, I think, El Salvador or some other country, and then he had to be brought back. Uh, and that's the scarier part, right?
So how does third country deportation work?
Because
Why
the
can
law,
third country agree to such
yes.
deportation?
So Trump 2.0 government, he signed some sort of a deal with a lot of third countries, including El Salvador, Mexico, and all, where he's basically said we'll send you our deportees,
Okay.
and there are
And what would they get in return?
who knows, right? So this might be just trying to work out a deal with Trump, right? Quid pro quo, something like that.
Is there any
Um,
data about how many such deportations have happened in the last couple of years?
So on withholding of there's quite a lot of deportations happening. I don't think the numbers are very clear. There's we just hear these in the news, but there's definitely a lot happening. There's quite a lot of number of deportees happening. We just don't see it enough in the news right now. There's a lot of people in this prison in El Salvador, which is kind of a very dangerous prison. That's where people are going to, and there are episodes aired about that particular jail or detention center, prison that these people are being sent to. So, just to wrap this up with Kilmar, there is precedence, but the issue with Kilmar is he's now back in the US. He is free, but they are still going after him with another case, saying that he was part of some gang and stuff like that. So there is a court pending. There is a case pending against Kilmar. So DHS is not giving up. There's another case which is also similar to Meenu in terms of the anti-Sikh violence, right? Because there was another lady named Bubbly Kaur, right? Bubblyjit, I think,
Hmm.
Kaur. She was a restaurant owner again, almost similar situation. She's got a couple of kids who are US citizens. Her husband is a green card holder. She was actually about to get green card, and she had gone to the consulate, the center, USCIS, where she was asked to come in because her approval was ready. She was just asked to come and do a 10-minute interview, and then your green card is done. That is a final process, biometrics and all that stuff. That's where the ICE agents were waiting for her, and they took her out.
Oh,
And then they took her to a detention center in California, and then there was a big community involvement. California, there's a lot more leniency to it. Not leniency, but there are a lot more people who are able to turn this because it is a little more liberal state. And what happened is, in her case, she was able to get out. I think in within a week or a couple of days, 15 days or so, I forget. But she was able to be released because there's a community fund. But in that short time she was in that jail, in California, in that detention center, She had sleepless nights because it was like a dormitory situation. A lot of people were crying at night. She couldn't sleep. And
Yeah,
these,
there
and
have
she
been
was 60 years
reports.
old. Yeah,
Yeah, there have been reports of the
yeah,
deportees who are
yeah,
people
yeah,
detentees, people
yeah,
who have been detained.
yeah.
They don't necessarily get any kind of standard kind of living conditions or health care that they deserve.
They don't.
So
Yeah,
that has been an issue that has come up
yeah.
again and
Yeah.
again.
So there was a
And
GoFundMe for Bubbly where the whole community in Long Beach, California, because she was a restaurant owner and worker there, again, not citizens, legal, most of her family was legal. And they were just doing, no ticket or not even a speeding ticket, right? She, again, committed no crime. She was 60 years old and then they just took her, right? No
yeah,
consideration to the fact
this is
that,
what I'm thinking also in the case of Meenu. uh, I mean, at this age, and after let's say about 35 years of living in US and having all your family and life in the US, not having come to India ever since then. I mean, her life is in the US. How is it is
yeah,
going to affect her life and
yeah, it
her
doesn't make sense
family
at
and
all, right?
everything is, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, situation has improved in India. May not be facing any threat to her
Yeah.
life or anything like that in India. So DHS could prove that okay, you are fit to be sent back to India.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the story. For her, India would be a foreign country at this stage.
Yeah, it would be, but here's the thing: in this situation where you have a government like Trump's got another two years, this is going to continue, right? Unless there's a you know miracle where these things don't stop happening. It's not, I would argue that this is detrimental even to the Trump administration to continue to do this, right? Because this is going to get a lot more people to wonder why, they're doing this. The humanitarian issues surrounding this is all not good, even for the administration. But I would even go and say, ask the Indian government to do something about this, uh, because it is sad if they were reported to a third world country. So India should do something, step in and say, hey, we are going to give something to these people, they can come back, right? Yes, there is trauma and all that, but India has changed a lot since then. Like, this is a black mark on Indian history where this anti-Sikh violence happened. That history, it's history, and
Yeah.
it is not today's India, right? So she can still go back. I would say the Indian government should do something about this. Like, that's one thing. In the other cases, as we wrap this up, right, with Bubbly's case and even in case of the Kilmar Abrigo, they were able to get out. Now Kilmar is still
Mm.
facing legal challenges. Bubbly was able to get out. She also came she also fled India, just like Meenu. But she had a legal process almost ready to confirm. That is why I think the court was able to quickly overturn her. Now she's back and just back in, with her family, and all is good. But there was a huge community support. Uh, the laws in the California, senators really lobbied for her release. In Meenu's case, the sad thing is there's not enough national attention, maybe because of the Iran war. We need to keep this in the news, right? We need to keep talking about Meenu's case. She's
Mm.
been in custody, in detention for 40 plus years. She's 53, 40 plus days. She's 53 years old. She needs to be sent back home. That is the first priority, nothing else. Let the due process happen after that. But you can't pull somebody, put into detention center, and then kind of make them suffer at that age, deport them to another third world country,
Yeah,
cause
there
more
are
trauma.
quite a few things there. I mean, detaining her for more than 40 days without kind of any judicial process happening,
Yeah.
like hearing or anything, I suppose. And then the second is deporting, if at all, to a third country is completely
Yeah.
unimaginable, not
So that's why
acceptable.
I think this should stay in the news, right? And I'm covering this here only because this is not getting enough coverage. I'm going to continue to post videos on this because I just wanted to, just as we close this, right? There was a comment I got on YouTube. Um, yesterday from somebody, and I want to read that out. Um, it basically is someone, one of our subscribers said it's appalling what is happening to all involved. This woman is a benefit to the country and has been an integral part in helping make our justice system accessible to non-speakers, because she was a court interpreter in Hindi, Urdu, and Punjabi, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So she was helping a lot of people. Family members have pledged their lives to our security, and this is, a U.S. citizen talking about this, right? While they have her detained, all the cases she is needed for are now stalled or worse, right? Overlooked.
Mm.
Nothing about this is okay. So that is a comment we got. So a random comment with somebody who just came and saw our quick short video yesterday and then came and said this. So there is a sentiment towards this. There is an increasing sentiment against this, right?
Mm.
That this is not right. Do the due process. Nobody is stopping DHS from doing that. Prove that the country that they fled from is now
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay to go to, and then do what is necessary. I mean, that take the legal approach. Don't do this. Don't pick people off streets who have been pick criminals off the streets. Who cares, right? I'm all about strong borders and all that. Pick criminals off the street, but then don't just randomly pick people to kind of
Yeah.
prove a number.
The due process has to be followed.
Yeah. I did want to talk about the anti-Sikh violence and how that erupted in India. Have the audience understand a little better about why she fled, right? Because when people hear, about somebody fleeing India or from a country, uh, people assume the worst. Especially in America, the anti-Sikh violence was going on all through 80s, wasn't it?
No, the riots happened in 1984. So the Operation Blue Star, which was the action that actually triggered the kind of violence in a bigger way. Punjab had been had been seeing a lot of political violence because there was this Akali Dal party which had basically been fighting for a separate state called Khalistan.
Hmm.
And it all started in the 1930s, even when the British were here.
Yeah.
So, and it was kind of growing gradually over the British empire period, and
Yeah.
then after post independence also that continued to fester in a way. So there was
Yeah.
on and off violence going on. They were looking for a kind of separate autonomous state, which obviously the
Yeah.
Indian government didn't want to allow. So there was
Yeah.
kind of a lot of violence in those that period, 1970s, 80s going on. So
Yeah.
in
So
uh,
Operation
so
Blue Star was basically targeting Khalistan militants, right?
militants who
Or
had taken control of the Golden Temple, and that
yeah,
happened because basically the militancy came into picture because a lot of former Indian army officials who were Sikhs, they were sympathetic to the cause of Khalistan, and so
yeah,
it became a little bit more militant in its approach towards their cause. So they managed to take control of the Golden Temple in Amritsar. And Operation Blue Star was basically the army going in to clear it out. So,
yeah.
and I think there are about 500 militants and civilians died in that operation. So, and
Okay.
Indira Gandhi was the prime minister at that point. So, a few months later, this happened in June 1984, and in September, Indira Gandhi was it September or October? Yeah, on 31st of October. So it's about 4 months later. She was assassinated by her two Sikh bodyguards. So, and the violence
Yes.
against Sikhs happened as a reaction to that. So there was this public outcry over Indira Gandhi's assassination, and
Yeah.
this triggered the killings of Sikhs. But it will be wrong to say that it was all spontaneous. It was
Yeah.
basically politically organized, supported by the state, by the police. So there was this in a way, it was a kind of mass killing of a particular ethnic population. So in
Yeah.
total, about 10,000 people died all over India. some
Yeah.
3,000 in Delhi
Delhi
itself.
alone, right?
Sikh
Yeah.
people actually kind of left India, and many of them left because they were not only kind of where they lost their families and they didn't feel secure enough, safe enough, but
Hmm.
many of them who were witnesses to these horrible kind of crimes, they were witnesses in cases, and they were persecuted in different ways. They were threatened by the politically influential people, powers that be, and they felt not safe enough to live in India, so they left India
Yeah.
at that.
And that's where Meenu Batra, Bubbly Kaur, these are the people who fled to India, whatever route they took, whether it's Dunki route or, I don't know if the Dunki route was back. I don't know if the Dunki route was a prominent route
Probably
back
not
then.
as common at that time, but
Yeah,
there
but
must be some way.
but maybe the earlier stages of that, right? Because they'd gone
Mm.
that way. If you were probably had enough, if you were resourceful enough, maybe you could get a flight in. Who knows how they escaped? But that's the case of Meenu Bhatt, right? Like, why did she even get accepted in the US with that withholding of removal was basically because of the anti-Sikh violence that broke out, and her parents were killed. And I don't know what happened to Bablijit's family. Maybe the same fate, but they all had to leave India, and now India is not that India, right? You don't have these kind of issues. That's where I was saying in our first segment that India should do something about this. My call to action is to India to help these people out. Don't let them be deported to a third world country. Work out a deal. Mr. Dealmaker Trump will work out a deal with Trump to help these people, especially India. That shows India in a good light. Uh,
It does,
Also,
yes. It
it's
should.
penance to what happened in India. You know,
Well, I'm just wearing my cynical hat at this point. It's too much to ask for a government that is obviously far too detached from that particular kind of time period. So subsequent governments have come and gone, and unfortunately, justice has not been done in this case. All the people
yeah,
who were murdered, raped, and killed like animals, basically,
yeah,
and their houses were burnt. There are lots of witnesses, there are lots of documentation of the people who were involved in this, except for one particular politician. Nobody else got any
yeah.
punishment. For, I mean, the police officers were kind
Turning a
of
blind eye.
identified, and the inquiry commission actually recommended action against them. Some 70, 80 police officers who were found to be negligent, grossly negligent in their duties, and also conspiring at some stages. 30 were recommended to be terminated from service, but no action was taken. But this is just one part. I mean, there has been very little justice done in this horrible kind of massacre that has happened. Now, but that is 40 years past. So the current government obviously has no clear incentive in kind of doing justice in those cases. And forget about kind of trying to help somebody who is in the US. And there may be other cases, obviously, in the US similar to Minus. But what does a country like India gain by helping them bring home?
Goodwill,
But if
goodwill,
goodwill, yeah, but goodwill is not transactional.
not
Goodwill
transactional.
is
Well,
exactly
with the president like Trump, I think a deal even is based off
has
of
to be transactional,
it's
and it has to be
everything is a
something more
transaction
than
with
just
him.
goodwill.
Yeah. So maybe I don't know if even these people would want to go back to India, right? They have a lot of traumatic,
That's the other thing I was
Yeah,
coming
I'm
to,
pretty
because
sure they might not
even if
want
there
to,
were, yeah,
but
there were opportunities to come back to India,
would they
would
come
they
back?
leave their whole life, whole kind of everything there, and come
The
back to a country which would be a foreign land for them?
Given a choice of going to El Salvador or some country that is alien to you at 53 years, or at your late 50s, or after 50 years old, like somebody like that, given a choice, where would you go? So it's not really a choice that is out of, you know, it's a choice out of necessity, right? Like you
Yeah,
can't come back. You can't
and
come
the
back to the US.
choice will depend on the individual
Yeah,
situation, circumstances,
yeah. There
and
are stories. Yeah, I just wanted to add. There are stories about people who self-deported to their home, the country that they fled from in South America, and then reconnected with some of their long-lost family and relatives. They are better leaving their children and family in the US because they had come in illegally, maybe, um, so there are stories like that. Given, you are in a bad spot anyway, it's between a rock and a hard place kind of a thing, right? So what would you choose?
yes, in that situation you would obviously prefer to go to a
Familiar.
society that is familiar to you. You are familiar with the culture, you have a common language. So even if your lifestyle has changed because you have lived in the US for 30 plus years, so still there is some commonality which will
Yeah.
make it easier than going to a completely
Yeah.
different
My plea to India is
culture
extend
and
that line of, goodwill. Extend that option. They saying that just to show goodwill, right? Do that at least, saying that you can come back, right?
yes, but
We'll work it out with you.
it's not India who is saying that you cannot come back. As long as she is an Indian citizen, and as long as she is allowed to be deported to India, there is no reason why any
What
Indian
does India
government
do
would
in that situation? Somebody who fled India, what does India do when they come back? They're obviously still of Indian origin. They might hopefully have a passport still. Who knows? Or was their passport? And I remember reading about some list that they had that they were removing people from it. Like, I don't know if it's this government, but then they were actually taking people off that list. There was some sort of a blacklist of these people who escaped, right? And I'm not sure whether Meenu is on it or not. Again, this
escape
Khalistani
from. You
terrorism
mean
list.
escape from India? You mean
Escape from India. Yeah, yeah.
escape would be applicable if there is any criminal case against the person.
Yeah,
But if she doesn't have any criminal record or criminal case against her in India,
yeah,
and I'm assuming here that she is still holding an Indian passport,
yeah.
there is no legal kind of obstacle to her coming back to India. The obstacle is actually in the US system rather than in the Indian
Yeah,
legal
obstacle is
system.
not there, not known, and Venkata puts. I mean, yeah, several people have gone back to India. I agree, but our people, and I don't know if you heard the first segment of ours. We talked about a case, Venkata, about Meenu Batra, who fled India during the anti-Sikh violence, and she's now in a ICE detention in the U.S. Texas detention center, where she's been there for 40 plus days, and she's awaiting decision. What Trump government right now is doing is they're deporting people who has a deportation order, even though that deportation order has a status saying that you cannot be removed and sent back to your home country. They're saying, yeah, we won't send you back to your home country, but you have a deportation order, we'll send you to some other country willing to accept you, which is El Salvador, Mexico, Cuba. I think there, I don't know, if there's a handful of companies or more, countries or more who are actually who have struck a deal with Trump that they give us your deportees. And what they do in turn is they might send her back to India. Who knows? We don't know, right? Again, somebody that old should not be going through that kind of ordeal. Do it properly is our plea to the U.S. government is let her come back home. She's not done anything wrong. Let her continue to appeal, and then let DHS, DHS should follow up with India saying, hey, is the situation changed? I don't know how that process is. Check with India. Can we send, can we deport her now? I don't know what the US gains from all this. Again, this is a lady who's been helping immigrants. She works for the court. It's all numbers game, right? So don't do it with people like that who have, you're just creating a humanitarian crisis.
Crisis in a way, yeah.
Doesn't look
So
good on
that's the
anybody.
thing. I mean, what Venkat is saying is right. I mean, a lot of people have returned from the US over the years, and after spending a substantial number of years in the US or any other country like UK, Canada, they have come back and they lead a good life in India
Yeah.
with their savings, and even though their children are settled
Yeah.
in another country. But
But
here
are
the
they people who
situation,
fled India? Are they people who fled India, or are they people who just like
yeah,
me went in?
this is a different context. That's
Category,
what
right?
I'm
That's the
coming to.
difference. Yeah. Yeah.
This is a different situation. She fled because she probably felt threatened for her life. So, and she has now lived there for so many years, has worked there, helping the judicial system there. So it's a different kind of context, and there are a lot of different factors to be considered there.
Yeah, I agree, Venkata. Yeah, she's caught in that situation. Not only in that sentiment alone, she's caught. Uh, she's stuck in a detention center for 40 plus days now, and this issue is not, it's been overshadowed by the war. Obviously, this particular detention is not getting the national attention that it deserves, especially for somebody who was working as a court interpreter. You should look up this, Venkata, and then yeah, she's definitely in a situation now. Anti-India sentiment. I don't think that will be her biggest worry right now. Is like, what are they going to do with me? Is probably what she's thinking.
Hmm.
Am I going to be sent to El Salvador, where I'm going to be in a dangerous prison with rapists and murderers? And that's what some people have been. Or will I be sent to a prison in Mexico? Will I be sent to another third country where I don't even know the people? And then how many days will she have to spend there, right? Before she's probably sent back. We don't know. Now, once she gets deported out to a third country, which is not India, uh, then it is up to that country to do whatever with her, right? The conditions might
Hmm.
not be great. They won't care if the US is not caring, and if our original country India is not caring. Like, what are they going to do, right? And where is the
Yeah.
UN in all this? Where is the UN in all this? I'm asking you because you're the UN.
Well, UN has an agency that deals with refugees issues and helps the refugees emigrate to countries from which they are fleeing. So, but typically that happens at a kind of a more group level. Individual cases they also deal with that. It's called UN refugee HRWA. So they do kind of help refugees in their legal cases as well. But then you have to be, first of all, when you enter the country, you have to be kind of at a very basic level. I'm explaining this. You have to be registered or recognized as a refugee. And if you face any legal issues because of your status, then the agency tries to help you through various resources, legal resources, and all things like that. So it doesn't look like Minu's case is as such, because even though she might have actually left India uh, because of safety issues, she didn't register for refugee, because if she had registered for as a refugee, then she would have applied for asylum. So normally that's the step.
I mean, she
So
was a
and when,
teenager. Like, what
yeah,
who knows what
so
went through
yeah,
her
because of the
mind?
circumstances, probably she couldn't do that. So and then that would have taken a different course of kind of.
So, U.S. law prevents her from being deported. U.S. domestic law, this withholding of remote status basically says you cannot be deported to your home country because you will face persecution there. UN also has a similar international law that prevents, any country from deporting you to a country where you will face torture or persecution, right? So there's an international law also protecting Meenu from being deported back to India. I'm I'm just wondering, is that UN law maybe broader, that if the Trump 2.0 government, the current Trump government, is able to find this loophole in the US judicial system within that withholding of removal status, saying your withholding of removal only says we cannot remove her and send her back to India. Your, the withholding of removal does not say anywhere that you can not be sent. That's what he's been doing. DHS
Hmm.
has been doing. So they found a loophole. Is there a
Yeah,
UN international law that maybe tightens that little further, saying that no, no, it's not, you cannot send her anywhere until you resolve this with
no,
your home country?
UN cannot intervene in this case, because obviously we're talking about national laws, and the national I mean, any sovereign state has complete control of their national laws, and the national laws are not standardized across countries. So it's not possible to basically for the something like an agency like UN to intervene and say that you can't do this because they don't have the jurisdiction there. There are certain international laws that's where UN can intervene and say that okay, you are violating international law, but we are now talking about national US law, so that's not something that UN can step into.
Yeah, I'm just responding to Venkata, right? Yes, Venkata. Yeah, they picked her on her way to work one day. She from the airport and just said, "You have a deportation order." Yes, she has a deportation order, but the withholding of removal puts a hold on the deportation order. That is what they are not saying. So they are saying we don't care. Your withholding of removal only says we can't. So they're detaining her first, and then putting her in a very bad situation in a detention center, a 53-year-old woman, and then saying, we will do due process on you. We'll
Yeah,
but due process has to happen first, not
yeah,
after you put.
exactly. It looks like an afterthought actually. It looks like
It's
from what
intentional, right? It's not an
I
afterthought
have
even. It's
heard
intentional.
from you and what I've read is that they basically picked on her and kind of detained her, and now they're trying to figure out what would be the kind of way forward. And obviously, due process has not been followed in this case.
Yeah, and she has four kids, Venkata. She has four kids. All are U.S. citizens. One of her youngest child, again, I'll send you the link to the CBS interview. Um, One of her children, the youngest one, has already enrolled in the U.S. Army. So not only are they U.S. citizens, one of them is actually in the enroll. So they are, very much American, right?
Bona fide Americans,
Yeah,
and
she is also not. Yeah,
she may
she's
not
also.
have American citizen, but she has been working there for so many years, three
Yeah,
decades, and she has been paying taxes. She's helping the judicial system,
yeah,
so it has something to say in her favor in that sense. If you look at the totality of the picture, but
yeah.
obviously DHS and ICE want to kind of look at only the narrow kind of part of the kind of law and find the loophole to subject her to this treatment.
Yeah. Did you ever write about any of this when you were at the Times of India?
Right about
Any of these anti-Sikh violence issues, or was that
no,
already
that
done?
was yeah. I was still I think I was 18-year-old at that time, so I hadn't started my uh, career as a journalist as such.
Yeah, we need to do an episode on journalism because I was watching the news about Amal Khalil, a Lebanese journalist who got killed.
Hmm.
That's a topic I want to follow because there's a lot of journalists being killed in definitely in the Israel in conflicts, whether it's Gaza or Lebanon or wherever they're trying to expand their territory. A lot of journalists are getting killed, right? And Amal Khalil, again, she was hiding from a Israel bomb or attack that was happening nearby. She was hiding in a building, and then they
Hmm.
targeted her. She also had a lot of death threats because she was covering news from South Lebanon, which they don't want her to do. Now, imagine the people who are invading your country is basically
Yeah,
calling the shot, saying that you cannot report from your own country, we'll kill you.
yeah,
It doesn't make sense at all, right? So that's happening. A lot of journalists getting killed. I mean, there are so many others, but this particular conflict, a lot of journalists. And she was a journalist of 20 plus years. And so I want to do a segment on journalism next time.
yeah. We need
Uh,
to. Yeah, I think the topic is something that is relevant because the future of journalism is
yeah,
kind of going through a lot of changes, not only because of the changes in the media, like
yeah,
we are now social media, AI, all those things are influencing how journalism is
yeah,
evolving, but also the whole craft and the kind of ideology of journalism. Plus, then journalists facing the real life threats of they are being
yeah,
they are at the forefront of all these conflicts. So they are basically uh, putting their lives out there, and they're
Yeah.
losing their lives. So it has many different aspects that we need to think
Yeah.
about. So it's worth talking about it
Yeah.
in one of our episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to, right? Because I'm wondering, right? Why would anybody join journalism school if they can just be a YouTube podcaster or a independent podcaster, or what they call now in independent journalism, citizen journalism, right?
Mm.
Uh, they can just, or TikToker, are able. Seriously, I mean, Washington, there are a lot of TikTokers outside the you know uh, Parliament office or whatever, just trying to get hold of senators and lawmakers who are out and about going for lunch or whatever. They'll go and try to
Mm.
get a sound bite from them, and that reveals a lot more, right? And these politicians
Yeah.
like it because they'll get that little sound bite out there, and if it's a soundbite that'll attract a lot of views, then they'll get their message out. They can say whatever they want. So where does journalism stand in that whole change? Like you said, it's changing. But why would I go to a journalism school, right? And I think there is a reason, because you got to learn the ethics of journalism, right?
Not only that, I mean,
Even if
you
you're doing
learn the
TikTok.
craft, and you are then also learning the ethics of it.
Hmm.
But you are also then molded by other kind of veteran journalists about
Yeah.
how to go about. It's not only the craft. You don't need to learn a lot of craft nowadays. It's easy to kind of get a soundbite, like you said. You
Hmm.
just have a phone, and even without any professional mic, you can kind of interview somebody and get a soundbite, and
Hmm.
you are doing journalism in a way. But that's not the be all and end all of journalism. Journalism is
Yeah.
all about telling the story, full story, the
Yeah.
context, in a very kind of balanced and neutral way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much to talk about there. Venkata, if you're still on, here's the link to the CBS News video for Meenu Batra. Please watch it. That's the best one yet. That's the only one yet that they're talking. CNN did another interview just 4 days ago of the lawyer who's fighting on her behalf. I want to continue to follow the story because there's a sentiment out there that this should not happen to people, especially people like Meenu Batra, who's been doing good job for the courts, although she's not legally a citizen or a green card holder. She was given employment authorization, multiple employment authorization. The courts that have been utilizing her skills, send her back home, and let's figure this out. If they really want to deport her back to the home country, do it in the proper way, due process. Let that happen first, and then let that's what the lawyer is also fighting for, right? The case that he's
Mm.
making is let her out, right? And there's not enough national coverage about Meenu Batra. That is why I think we need to talk about it. Larry, you just joined. Larry Bone follows the immigration cases very closely. He's the one who sent me the article about Bubbly yesterday. But Larry, you're a bit too late. We are about to log off. Hopefully, you get to see the whole episode. And please, Larry, use clips from our episode and share it with your audience, which is a primarily
And
Indian
share any
audience.
comments you may have. Yeah.
Yeah, Larry follows us very closely, right? Because
Yeah.
he's very much invested in India. Um, and what happens in India, what happens to Indians, he's very close to that, uh, especially with the immigration stuff that is happening. So I just want to close out. I mean, we ran a little long, but this is a good episode. I think we talked about a very important case, Meenu Batra's case, the immigration laws that are being used to detain people that should not be there. So I hope the Department of Homeland Security stops this. It's not good. It's not a good look for them. It's not a good look for anybody. Follow due process. Do whatever you want in within the confines of the law. Don't find loopholes. Don't send people to third world country, especially if they're old and you know like Bablijit and like Meenu Batra. Just period. Don't send
Yeah.
anybody to a third world country just because you can. Follow due process. They're not criminals. You should not put them in a jail with criminals, right? get criminals off the street. Who said no? But don't do it for people who have proven that they follow the US values, proven that they have been a very good value add to the community that they belong to. So with that, thank you for everybody who's joined. We had I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed talking to you about this whole case. We will do more of this next Sunday. We'll bring some important topics. So please follow, please subscribe to the Sunday Draft. We are on YouTube. We'll be posting a lot more YouTube shorts, it seems like it's actually getting a lot more audience. Quick post. So we have the Sunday Draft on YouTube. Please subscribe to the Sunday Draft on Substack, because we'll be doing more lives. All you need is to be a subscriber here, and then you'll get notified of the lives. So please follow us, subscribe to us. Thank you for joining. It's okay, Larry. Apologies accepted. Yeah, Substack is very finicky in terms of its live scheduling. So someday when we have enough subscribers, we might be able to switch to a paid platform. So again, we don't have that ability right now. It costs. So we are using all the free tools Substack is giving us. So that is the issue. Next time we will just promote the Substack link. We will not promote a stream link, because that seems to change last minute by Substack. So when it gets finicky. Again, Larry, you will get this whole episode. You should watch it. This is a very important topic for you, because you feel passionately about this. So please watch. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to log off right now. And thanks, Kanti. It was always nice.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back from your vacation.
And thank you, everyone also who joined.
Yeah. Bye. Take care. Have a good rest of the Sunday. Bye.